Matthew has me on a roller coaster and I'm so furious. He had me on such a high that I was ecstatic, and to see him and hear what's happened at the end of the episode, oh my god, I'm so furious. I really am. Anyway, hey there. Thanks for stopping by. It's your girl Valerie. Welcome to my channel. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe, click the like button, turn on the notification bell for when I upload new videos, and definitely leave a comment. In this episode, I'll be reviewing Love is Blind Season 6, Episode 1. Okay, Season 6, I have high hopes for you. I have been on a high and a low with Love is Blind. I started watching in Season 2. I could never get into Season 1. I just thought it was too, I don't know. And so I'm not one of those Cameron and Lauren champions. I'm sorry. Oh, neither am I and Amber and whatever her husband's champions. I started in Season 2 and I have been on the highs and the lows, including Ayan and Jared, all the way down to Bliss and Zach and back again. So let's go. Let's see what's happening this season then. Oh my god, 10 minutes in and I'm already seeing where this is going. I hope it's not going to be a toxic season like the past couple of seasons have been, because that ain't it. Anyway, you start off with Trevor. I'm not sure what to make of him. He says, people overlook him because he's a bodybuilder. And it's like, the first couple of people, they really don't make an impression. Chelsea, she looks like she's seriously looking for love. What I like about Love is Blind is they're not very aesthetically focused. They're focused more on the type of person that is serious about, a career person, someone who's seriously looking for love, someone who's seriously looking into marriage. Yes, you do get those that want to be influencers, but the majority of them, I think lately, mostly since Season 4, they haven't really gone for the aesthetics. They've tried, but their focus hasn't really been on the aesthetically good-looking man or woman. So for me, Trevor, Chelsea, Jimmy, Jessica, Matthew, Sarah Ann, the first couple of people, nothing really stood out. Outside of Matthew, he's giving me Paul vibes, if you remember Paul from Season 4. But he's also giving me Sheldon from The Big Bang Theory, in the sense that he's got this list of questions that he wants everybody to answer. And if you don't answer them correctly, he walks out. And that's disrespectful. They need to kick him out. And the fact that he's got questions for the girls, but is not willing to take a question back, is shocking. Jessica says she's got a child and so she's looking for a husband, and it's like, hey, if it works for you, hooray. I also like Sarah Ann. Sarah Ann looks like she's going to be amazing. The fact that she swore once, Matthew walked out before she finished speaking, thus far, of the sort of 6 people that I've seen, Sarah Ann stands out for me. Let's keep going and see what happens. Okay, I'm going to stay off Twitter until I finish watching, because I liked how sort of AD was able to get Matthew to open up. Clay, I think, is the player. Clay, I think, is just there for the followers that come with being on the show. I don't think he's there for the right reasons, because of the fact that after, during his conversation, he mentioned he's a podcaster, and then he went into his podcaster voice, and it's like, who are you auditioning for? Who? You don't get people in finance and whatever saying, okay, give me a couple of numbers, let me add them up for you. You are more there for the followers than anything else. So then all the, pod squad go to their separate lounges, and you have the guys catching up, and they're sort of talking about Matthew in the sense that he's not very social. I think he's not an outgoing person. He's already told AD that, his therapist was surprised that he was coming on to Love is Blind. So for me, I'm not surprised that he's sitting on his own and is doing his own thing. I think he will find his own person in the guys' lounge that will sort of understand him, just like Zach and Paul were able to understand each other, and I think he'll form a friendship with someone. And then the most interesting thing in the women's lounge is, as they're talking about their dates, you have, AD mentioned that, they're sort of talking about the guys first. They're talking about Trevor and who else. And then in the women's lounge, AD started talking about her date with Matthew. I like the fact that everybody went, hold up, wait a minute, let's hear this. every conversation stopped, because I think Matthew, what he did is what Zach did on his season, in the sense that Zach created this impression amongst the ladies that some of them were very put off by him and didn't even entertain a second date. And that's because Bliss says, Zach was very skeptical about the process and didn't believe he'd find his person in this process, but he came just because. And for me, I think Matthew came in with the same sort of skepticism as Zach and Paul, because Paul used it as an experiment. He's a scientist, whereas Zach was just skeptical. He was just skeptical. He didn't understand how you could find your wife or your husband in this process. And so I think this is what is happening, in the sense that you've got a combination of Zach and Paul in one person, and that person gives you Matthew. So for AD to tell the ladies that she was able to get Matthew to open up, they were all surprised. They couldn't believe it, because he didn't give them that impression that he was seriously looking for love. And the fact that he had walked out on a couple of them and had these questions he had written down, and those are the answers that he wanted, he wasn't able to have a free-flowing conversation. It didn't make sense to them how AD had managed to get him there. And the fact that he was able to talk about his therapist and the things he had discussed with his therapist, that goes to show you that AD was able to tap into something that all the other ladies didn't tap into. I can't wait to see what happens with the two of them. I really can't wait. I really hope there's no mean girl or mean boy sort of play in the lounges like there was, with the Irina group, because you have the guys sort of talking and sort of saying Matthew, and the cameras actually show Matthew on his own. He said he comes from a small town. He's not very social. He's not used to showing emotion. So I like the fact that one of the guys was just saying, he's in his own little world, and that's who he is, and we have to accept him for that, because the other guys were like, oh my God, look at him. He's not associating with everybody else, because everybody was doing a cheers for the pods for the first day, and he was just on his own. And it's like, well, he will find his person that understands him and that lives in the same world that he is. And if that is AD, amazing. If that's somebody else, that's still amazing. You then have, the next day they go on their dates, and it's Amy, and she goes on a date with Johnny. What do I think? I didn't quite get the match. I don't think they quite understand one another. I think they both believe in family. That's good. But something was a bit off with their date. I wouldn't say that they are very compatible. I don't know. Maybe after a couple of conversations, maybe it's still tense because they're still getting to know one another. But I don't think Johnny is it for her. AD goes on a date with Clay. Clay, I think, is just there for the celebrity. I'm going to say this again. The fact that he calls her all day, her name is Amy Desiree. But still, I think he's too flirty. Even AD recognizes that, he seems like a ladies' man, and that's the impression that I get. I think she's better off with someone like Matthew, or maybe somebody else. Maybe we'll see her chat to somebody else, but I don't think Clay is it for her. I think he's just after the ladies, and I don't think he's after marriage. I think he's after just being on the show. Oh my God, I'm in love with AD and Matthew. I'm sorry. If they break up, I'm going to be heartbroken. I'm going to need a therapist. They're going to have to pay. Love is Blind is going to pay for my therapist. I think AD was right. Or, the theory that there is someone for every person is right, in my opinion. Because looking at how AD is able to get Matthew to open up and sort of spill his heart out to her and sort of be relaxed enough to say and have a conversation with her is amazing. It's amazing. The fact that she's able to make him vulnerable. She said he's like a pistachio. She allowed him to, crack open and then let the gooey parts fall out. And this is what has happened, because she was able to tap into a part of him that nobody else was able to tap into. And I think listening to asking each other the types of music that they like, I think it's going to give them some sort of idea, because he's a country boy. It's like a Lifetime movie, a country boy who comes to the city and falls in love with a city girl. And so I don't know. I have high hopes for them, and I'll be heartbroken if they don't work out. I'm sorry. I think Jessica and Jimmy have a great connection. I know that Jimmy is a year younger, and obviously, Jessica, right from the pods, she mentioned that she's got a daughter. And so I get where she's coming from, that maybe if she had told the guys that she's got a child, they would have been put off by the idea of becoming an instant dad. So they wanted to get to know who she is as a person first before they sort of decided whether or not they were ready to take on the baggage that came with her, not baggage per se, but the daughter that came with her. So I liked their conversation with Jimmy and how she was able to introduce that, and he handled it very well. He's right to ask, like, you're 28 years old, you say you've got a 10-year-old, so that means you're a teen mom. What happened? Because there is worry that is this child as a result of a consensual relationship, or was this something else? And I like the way that he took it on board, and he was right to say, I like you as a person, but this is something that I need to decide. And he needs time, and she has to be accommodating enough to understand that this is something that takes time for him to decide that at 27, does he want to take on board a 10-year-old child. It's not like he's taking on a baby. He's taking on someone who's about to be a teenager. So he has to ask himself, is this something I'm willing to take on board? Because if it is, then fine. If it's not, then it's best it ends in the pods instead of wasting time proposing to you and then turning around and saying, well, actually, I've decided now. Poor pure Jimmy. It seems all the ladies that he likes are just dumping their baggage onto him. It's too much for one person. It really is too much, because he's already had the conversation with Jessica and she's told him that she's got a 10-year-old child. And here comes Chelsea. She tells him she was married at 18. So both ladies, one got married at 18, one had a baby at 18. That's too much for one person to take on. That's too much for one person to take on board. And for Chelsea to feel some type of way, he's telling her, okay, yours is not the worst news I've received today, but it's a bit too much for me to take on board after someone has just told me they have a child, and now you're telling me you've got an ex-husband. This is too much for me. This is too much. I haven't had time to digest the child first. You're already telling me about your marriage. And so for her to go off and start crying, oh, he's just being honest. He's giving you his honest opinion. How would you feel if both guys you were dating, one told you he had a child and the other one told you he had an ex-wife? You would feel the same way. So I don't get why you're in your feelings, and I don't get why you're making such a big deal out of nothing. It's not like he said, I don't want to talk to you anymore. He just said, this is too much for me. I need time to sort of process all this information and decide what I want to do, whether I'm ready to take on somebody's ex-wife, or whether I'm ready to take on someone with a child. He didn't say, I want you over her, or I want her over you. He just said, I need time. And so for you to throw a tantrum doesn't make sense. Tell the girls what he said. Don't pretend that he said nothing that he didn't. I don't like how Chelsea is trying to paint Jimmy as the villain in her story to Trevor, because he was never negative about it. He just said it was the wrong time or the wrong day to be telling him about her marriage, because he had just found out about somebody else's child. And so the fact that she wanted to sort of just slip it in to conversation that she was married before and pretend like they'd discussed it before, and then to sort of say, oh, I didn't bring it up because of the way it was received by somebody else. I don't like that. Because that does not... They're in the pods. Everybody's is entitled to their own reaction. And whether or not this is what she was expecting, that's fine. But she needs to be honest with every guy and not use someone as a bad guy and sort of hide behind them as the reason why she didn't reveal the truth about herself. She should have told him she was married before. Jimmy's reaction has nothing to do with her telling him or not, because either way he was still going to find out anyway. So she can't hide behind Jimmy and say, oh, the responses that I've received from other people after I've confided in them that I was married is maybe the reason why I was hesitant to bring it up. And it's like, oh, please sit down somewhere. We're not here for that. Just when you thought you can't get one, you will get that superficial person. What was his name from season 2? What was his name? That vet? What was his name? I've forgotten his name. Oh my God. The audacity for Clay to ask, AD, how do you look? Describe your physical features to me, because I want to be able to be attracted to the person that I propose to. You can get there, and if she doesn't look the way you want, you can say, no, I'm not going to propose. I want to turn around and go back. You're not tied down to it. You can say no at the altar. The audacity for you to come into an experiment where you're not supposed to know the physical appearance of the person you're speaking to, and for you to ask her to describe herself, that's a no. AD needs to tell him just to go to the left. To the left. Because he's not there for the right reasons. That has shown it. And I don't know what else she needs to hear from this guy to know that he's not there for the right reasons. He's very superficial. He's very, oh my God, I like the words to describe him because he's grating on my nerves. I knew it from the moment he started talking about his podcast and his podcast voice that he was superficial and he was there just to get celebrity, and he's just proved me right. I hope he doesn't get to propose to anyone. I hope he gets to go back home and watch himself on TV and watch the fool that he is. Oh, I'd forgotten, it's Sheikh. He reminds me of Sheikh from season 2. I've gone from such a high to a low. What the hell? So Matthew goes on this date with AD after she's been on a date, with Clay, where he's asked about her physical appearance. And so you have Matthew having these conversations, telling her, he doesn't care about the race of the woman that he's going to date. He's going to run around and take her so that they can run to a mountain and he'll propose. She's the only person for him. And so he's stuck on her. He doesn't want anybody else. She's it. And, this lifts AD's spirit. And even I am ecstatic about this because I'm thinking, oh my God, this is an amazing man. Oh my God, where did he come from? Only for AD to go back to the pods and have one of the girls tell her exactly the same thing, to say they have the same date, they had the same conversations with Matthew. And you can see her face drop because she's thinking, what the hell? Is this man playing with me? How does he tell me the same thing he's telling somebody else? Make that make sense. And for me, it's infuriating because I had high hopes. I really liked Matthew. I really liked how he was able to lift up AD's spirits, especially after she had the terrible date with Clay. And so for someone else to come and say he said the same words verbatim, I am so upset. I'm so furious. And oh my God, she might as well just go home then. She might as well just go home because I don't think it's worth her having to go through this. There's no way. The only other thing I expect is for the producers, because they're watching this. How are they allowing this person to repeat the same words to different women unless they're doing it for drama? They need to allow her to sit down with Matthew and the other ladies that he's spoken to and hear what he said. And they need to call him out and they need to, kick him out of the experiment because they cannot have someone come and play games, stupid games for stupid prizes. This is unacceptable. And I feel he needs to go home. Anyway, I digress. Thanks guys for watching. Please don't forget to like, share, comment and subscribe, and click the link in my video to watch my reviews from the previous season of Love is Blind.